Okay, welcome back. And before we start looking at factorising single brackets, I want to go back one step and look at expanding this bracket here, and that will give us an understanding of the next step. So if you recall, we used the term faux, and the point of that was to remind us to multiply out the firsts and then to multiply out the outsides. One thing to notice here in these terms, they both have a common value. In this case, it is 4. So 4 is a common factor to both 4x and 4y. So just bear that one in mind a second. So now we're going to factorise 4x plus 4y. To do this, we break these down into their factors, hence the reason for showing you this part here. So we look at the factors of 4x and 4y, and we're looking for common factors. So in this case, we've got 4x and we have got 4y. You could have 1 and 4x, and you could have 1 and 4y. We can already see the 4 is a higher common factor than the 1. So I'll get rid of those. So what we do here is we take that factor that is common to both parts and we place it outside of a bracket. So we have used the highest common factor from both, and now we place the other factors inside the bracket. And in this case, it's all positive, so I'm not going to worry about the signs at the moment. They are positive signs. So you have just factorised 4x plus 4y. That is the factorisation, and that is done. So it's a quick recap. I want to show you this, so hopefully you can see the cycle. So if we write out 4 in brackets x plus y and the expanded version 4x plus 4y, hopefully you can see going this way round, we are expanding brackets, but going this way round, we are factorising. So you can see it is just a cycle. Let's have a look at a few. So we're going to factorise these expressions. Remember, we're looking for the highest common factors. So I recognise that 6 fits into 30. So I can say that is 6 and a, and that one there will be 6 and 5. So I can see 6 comes outside of the bracket. So here we go, open the bracket. We are left with a. That is a positive a and a positive 5. I'll come back to the signs when we get to the negatives as well. So that's factorised. Let's look down here. Same thing. I recognise that 4 is the highest common factor of 12 and 8. So I've got 4 times 3x is 12x, and I've got 4 times 2 is 8. So in this case, the 4 comes outside the bracket. I'm left with positive 3x and a positive 2 inside the bracket. And if you want to check these, you can expand. Okay, looking at question 3, I think it's quite clear that a needs to come out the bracket. However, we need to be careful now because this is a negative ac. I want to deal with the positive value of a. So in this case, a times b is ab, and a times minus c is minus ac. So a comes outside the bracket. We are left with b minus c. Notice with the other ones, I don't put plus. If you feel that you need to do that, that's fine. Looking at question 4, before we start, we have to recognise there is a negative, so be careful. We can see straight away that b is in both. So let's just put the b down first of all. The biggest factor in 12 and 15 is 3, so 3 goes into both of those. So 3 times 4 is 12. 3b times 4a is 12ab, so that has to be an a there. This whole term is negative. If this is positive, this term over here needs to be negative. So 3 times 5 is 15. b times c, you need to have that as a c. So 3b is the common factor that comes out of the bracket. We are left with 4a minus 5c. Hopefully you can see the method here is about finding the highest common factors of each term. Let's look at some more challenging questions. In this question here, what we need to recognise is that is the same as saying 10x multiplied by x. Okay, just need to recognise that. Coming back to this question, there are 2 x's here, there's 1 x there. We can see x is in both. So let's make that fairly clear straight away. Now, because there are 2 x's in this one, I've taken 1 out for this factor, there's got to be 1 over here. Now what I want to recognise is the numbers. I know that 5 is the biggest factor of 10 and 15. So 5 comes there and 5 goes there. This one's not quite complete because 5 times something is 10, so that has to be 2. So let's just check this one. 5 times 2 is 10, x times x is x squared, that's done. We need to recognise there's a negative. This side is positive, therefore this side has to be negative. 5 times 3 is 15, x times y is xy. So this becomes 5x outside the bracket, 2x minus 3y inside the bracket, and that's done. Coming down to question 2, we can see that a and b are in both brackets. Now what we have to spot here is there are 2 a's here, so there has to be another a over this side, and there are 2 b's here, so there has to be a b over this side. Now looking at the numbers, we have got 3 in both 6 and 9. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 2 is 6. So we can see we have 3ab outside of the bracket with a 3a plus a 2b inside the bracket. These two look more complicated, but to be honest, they're exactly the same. We have x and y, so I'm going to place those on the left hand side. We have x twice here, so there'll be another x over here, and we have y twice here, so there'll be another y here, because x times x is x squared, y times y is y squared, so we've dealt with the letters. We have x, y, we have no extra ones here, we have a z which we haven't used, so that has to go to the other side. Let's deal with the numbers. So the biggest factor of 36 and 24 is 12. So 12 times 3 is 36, and 12 times 2 is 24. So we can see 12xy is the common factor to both of these terms. That comes outside the bracket. We have 3xy plus 2z inside the bracket. So this last one here, we are doing the same thing. P, P, and P is in all of these. Let's just be careful here. We need to recognize the negative. Q, Q, and Q is also in these. So I've used the P and Q here. I haven't used the R. There are no R's in these, so the R goes separate. I've used one of the P's here, but the other one I haven't, so that has to go the other side. I've used the P and one of the Q's, so I'm still left with a Q because there's two, and there we go. So now let's deal with the numbers. The biggest factor of 12, 15, and 3 is 3, so they are common to all of them. 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times 1 is 3. However, this term is negative, so this has to be a negative one. Okay, let's bring that together. We have got 3pq, 3pq, and 3pq. That is common to all, so that sits outside the bracket. All we do now is bring these three together. Notice if there's no sign, it is positive. So we have 4r plus 5p minus 1q. We don't tend to write the 1, we just show it as q, and that is factorised. Hopefully you can see it's fairly straightforward, as long as you look for the highest common factors. So before heading off to the next video, it would be great if you could like and subscribe this video for me.